All right, so today we're talking about Chapter 10, Section 1, collecting data. That is a pretty short section, and well, it's going to be a lot of text, really. So let's see. We're talking about statistics. All right, so let's go and snip this and put this on the page on the notes. I think it's pretty important. We'll talk about the high parts here. All right, if you've taken statistics before, you're familiar with a lot of these definitions. However, for those of you that have not taken statistics, these might be new to you. But at the same time, I mean, if you watch sports, if you do anything, you're familiar with statistics. So now let's just talk about some of the bolded points here. So statistics is a collection of organization and communication of data. So data are pieces of information that are collected, right? Makes sense. Um, when we decide we want to learn more information about a particular group, we must define the population of the group of interest we want to examine. We talk about parameters. So a number that describes a particular characteristic of a population is a parameter. Lastly, we've got if data are collected from all members of a population, it is called a census. So to learn about a population, we look at a subset of population called a sample, all right, or a sample size, or a sample statistic. And again, all these definitions are definitions that you are familiar with. And let's go ahead and I guess reiterate that and put this on example one. Tie it to example one rather. And let's see. I think maybe I don't necessarily need to snip the answers there. No big deal. So let's go ahead and move everything to over here to the right. All right, so let's look at example one. Example one is reads, start looking right here. For the following scenarios, identify the population, sample size, and whether the results represent a population parameter of a sample statistic. Now, of course, again, up here we have, oh, that's not the laser. Up here we have the abridged version of those definitions that we talked about. So for example one, we're wanting to know uh, for the following, we need to identify the population, the sample, and whether the results represent a population parameter or a sample statistic. All right, so let's get a population parameter real quick. A population parameter is a number that describes a particular characteristic of a population. All right, pretty easy. Uh, or a sample statistic. So a sample is a sample. A sample is a subset of a population. Okay, so looking at a school board recently read a report indicating that the time teens spend I don't know why I got confused there. That the time teens spend playing video games is increasing dramatically. That's a shocker. I say that because I play games. So to test the report, they surveyed local high school students. Of the 250 students surveyed, 58% indicated that they played video games at least 4 hours a day. Okay, so let's do this. We want to identify the population, so let's do pop for population. We also needed to know the sample, so sample, and whether it represented a population parameter or a sample statistic. Okay, so the population is obviously going to be high school students, so that's pretty easy. So high school students. Right. And the sample is 250 students surveyed, so 250 students. All right, so we have the population of high school students. The sample is 250 students. Now, does this represent a population parameter or a sample statistic? So, if we're looking again, let's go back to the definition because this is probably the I won't say the hardest part, but the more confusing part. A population parameter is a number that describes a particular characteristic of a population. Okay, so a number that describes a particular characteristic, and a sample is a number that describes a particular characteristic of a sample. All right, so this is going to be a sample statistic because it's only referring to the students that are surveyed. Okay, so this is going to be a sample statistic. So That's horrible. That'll do. Okay, so it's going to be a sample statistic. So B, we have a local youth group, and well, we're not actually done. So a local youth group interviewed 800 adults across a southern state about their views on teenagers' use of cell phones. The resulting report stated that approximately 58% of the adults in the southern state are in favor of limiting teenagers' use of cell phones. Okay, so what kind of population are we looking at for this particular survey, right? Or collecting of data. So the population is going to be what are we just going to call local adult 800 adults. So we'll just say 800 adults. The sample, well, that's actually 800 adults. I probably, yeah, I can be a lot better with the population. The population is just adults in a southern state. So, yeah, sorry about that. Adults in a southern state. We'll put SS for southern state. Again, if you're watching the lecture, you know what these mean. All right, so now is this going to be a population parameter or is it going to be a sample statistic? Right? In this particular case, it's going to be a population parameter because we're referring to all the adults in that particular state. So it's going to be a population parameter. Population parameter. Oh, was there a C? Oh, that's example 2. Okay. That was close. All right, so yeah, I already went through here. So let's go ahead and do the same thing we did for the first part, the introduction to these um, words, and put these on a whole new page. We're going to be talking about sampling techniques. So now obviously these definitions are a lot more concise than what I'm going to snip here in the Sandy area, but I just don't find it very helpful to just read off of a textbook when you can do that. It always bothered me when my professors did that. So instead what we're going to do is we're going to put this on a new page and we're going to go over them here, which I should have done for example 1, but that's fine. And then we'll snip example 2. So A, B, C, D. Ooh, there's E of them. Okay. By E of them, I mean 5. Alright, so we're going to be cutting this a little close, but that's okay. Ooh, that is close. Alrighty, so looking at this particular, let's looking at the Sandy area. Again, this is this is just a recap of the previous page. We talk about random sample. So a random sample is a sample where every member has an equal chance of being selected. That makes sense. Systematic sample, a sample where every nth person is selected. Convenient sample, a sample that is selected because it is convenient for the researcher. A stratified sample, a sample in which the population is separated into groups or strata based on similar characteristics, and then a sample is taken from each group. And then a cluster sample is a sample in which the population is separated into clusters. Some of the clusters are randomly selected, and then the data is gathered from each member in the selected clusters. Okay, so these are different types of sampling techniques. And let's look at example 2. So example 2 reads, you've been asked to select the food for the senior class graduation dinner. To help inform your decision, you plan to ask a sample of students from the senior class what their favorite food is. For each of the following scenarios, identify the sampling technique. Give me a second. Let me move some of these toolbars. Well, I don't think you can see them on the video, but they're a little in the way, at least for it to be able to read E. Anyways, so looking at A, all seniors are required to attend a meeting regarding graduation details. Okay, so you stand outside the meeting room and ask every 10th senior what their favorite type of food is. Okay, so if I'm asking every 10th senior, well, then that is an example of a systematic sample, right? Because it is every nth student, right? Looking up here at systematic. So if it's every nth, then systematic. There we go. Systematic. B, we've got you ask all the seniors in each of your classes what type of food is their favorite. So if I'm asking all of them, um, let's see, this could be. All right, so let's go back and actually read. Let's read the problem here, just to fully understand what I'm looking at. So I'm asked to select. I've been asked to select the food for the senior class graduation. So if I've been asked to select the food, and then I'm asking all the seniors what their favorite type of food is. All right, this is going to be an example of a convenience sample because that is a sample that I selected because it is convenient for the researcher. I'm researching the favorite food, therefore I ask them. So it's going to be a convenience. All right, so it's going to be a convenience sample. C, the names of all the seniors are placed in a hat and 50 names are selected without looking. Those seniors are contacted about their favorite food. Okay, so this is just going to be an example of a random sampling because there's just 50 names and we're just taking them out at random. Okay, so that's a good example of a random sampling. Okay, so seniors are separated by academic major, and then 6 students from each major are randomly selected and asked about their foods. So we are grouping them up. All right. This could either be a cluster or a stratified sample, but let's go ahead and read the definitions one more time. A stratified sample is a sample in which the population is separated into groups, which we just did, based on similar characteristics, and then a sample is taken from each group. A cluster sample is a sample in which the population is separated into clusters. Some of the clusters are randomly selected. All right, so this is not going to be a cluster because we're not necessarily randomly selecting them. We are selecting them, we are grouping them based on their majors. So we are going to call this a stratified sample. And then E, all seniors take the senior capstone course. Okay, so there are 25 sections of the course. 8 of the 25 sections are randomly selected, and all seniors in those sections are asked about their favorite food. Okay, so this will be an example of a cluster sample. Okay, and I believe today was a very short section, or that one was, and so that does conclude today's lecture on Chapter 10, Section 1.